In October of 1985, Nihon Busan released Cosmo Police Galivan onto the world. In this game you take control of the main character, Galivan, who is out to defeat the enemy while proceeding through the base, and if you reach the location of the boss and defeat it, the stage will be cleared. You can go in any direction instead of being forced to follow a set path. This is great, but it's also a hindrance if you're not careful. It's quite easy to get lost. Thankfully, the first stage does have an arrow showing you which way to progress. As you see, you start off as a weak human, who really has very little power against the enemies. Thankfully, killing enemies will reveal various power-ups that allow you to transform into an arse-kicking cyborg. In fact, if you don't get these power-ups, you'll never get anywhere in the game, so it is essential that you take your time through each stage in order to receive your cyborg abilities. So how is Galivan on the Amstrad CPC? This port along with the C64 and ZX Spectrum came out in 1986, so I can imagine that the publisher Ocean just farmed out all ports to different people. This version comes to us courtesies of John Gibson and Karen Davis. Or at least I think that's what the second person's name is. It's hard to read due to the odd font and colour choice. Well, we should be grateful that this is not a direct specky port. We've actually got a proper colour game here, and it uses a screen ratio that resembles the arcade game. Sadly, the gameplay does not resemble the arcade game. The arcade was swift and fluid. This is a slow, laggy mess. You can't shoot diagonally, you move forward when jumping up for some reason, and the scrolling is very tedious. Even back in 1986, I couldn't see this being much fun. And Mr. Harrison and Mr. Grieve were behind the Commodore 64 port. First impressions are not good, since they never made any effort at all with the title screen, but once the game starts we can see this is much closer to the arcade game than the Amstrad was. The controls are very well done. They do feel pretty close to the arcade game in weight and movement. We can also jump and shoot diagonally with ease. The stages are shorter for sure, but that's okay with me, as I found the arcade originals to drag on a little too long. Overall, a reasonably good attempt. Well, this isn't surprising at all. The ZX Spectrum port was developed by the same people behind the CPC version, and as a result it plays exactly the same with all the same issues. Only this time it has far less colour. Some may think it looks cleaner like this, but yeah, cleaner or not, it's still an awful game. The last release of Galivan, excluding the emulated versions, was on the Famicom and hit Japanese stores on June 3rd, 1988. To be honest, we can't really call this a port as it is a completely different game. Same name, same title logo, but for sure a game that has very little in common with the arcade original. Well, besides the developer. The purpose of this version is to have Galivan explore the enemy base and finally defeat the chief Madius. With a total of 6 areas, you can defeat enemies and grow Galivan while solving mysteries, such as finding a way to open boss areas or finding weapons that can defeat bosses. When you defeat an enemy in this version, they sometimes drop power icons that, when collected, accumulate experience points to allow Galivan's level to increase. A nice enough idea, but nothing that amazing. And let's take a look at all those versions of Cosmo Police Galivan running side by side.